Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Empowerment Project podcast. I am Andrea Bosco, and we have the lovely Dr. Shar Ray here.
Hey, everyone.
And today we have a very special guest with us. We have Christina Forlingieri, who is our newest team member, soul sister, partner in Shine. And we are just so blessed to have her with us on the podcast today and also part of the Empowerment Project. She comes with over 20 years of education experience and has a really, I think, important story to tell. And so we're going to jump right in and get into Christina's story, and then we'll dive into some other areas. So, Christina, how's it going?
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. I'm doing great. This is amazing.
Good.
Yeah.
So tell us
let's
a
get
little bit
started.
about, I don't know, as far back as you want to go. Like you decide, we have lots of different listeners from different, parts. And so you tell it, you share, tell us your story.
Well, from a long time ago, I always saw myself working with children and started in ECE college, right out of high school, actually. I went into co-op. I worked in childcare and right away from co-op. And then I ended up getting hired by that co-op placement, went into ECE at Humber College. And I worked in so many different programs from childcare, YMCA. I was tutoring at some point with all different students, ESL students from China at one point.
Oh.
I've done a lot. And after I had my kids, I have 3 boys.
Yeah, I was going to say, tell us about your family.
Yeah, so I have 3 lovely, busy boys. Right now, they are 13, they are 10 and 9. So, while I was having my kids, after I had my first son, Adamo, after my mat leave, I ended up getting hired by one of the biggest school boards as an ECE. So right after I had my first child, that's when I entered the school system, which was amazing. I loved it. Sorry, I'm nervous, guys.
That's okay.
Take your time. Great.
Take a breath.
It's a lot. It's like a lot that I'm trying to
Yeah.
Yeah, so I joined the school system in 2012, right after my first mat leave. And right after my first full school year, came back pregnant, mat leave, came back pregnant again, mat leave. So it was a big part of my life, this working in the school board.
And it was the decision to continue to return after mat leave because, just walk us through that mentality of because now you have 3 little kids, but you're still going back to work, which we know is sometimes a hard decision for some moms, right?
Yeah, it was difficult, to say the least. My husband works in the construction industry, so he leaves very early in the morning. So, he does his best to help me, but he has to leave very early. So everything was put on me, leaving for work in the morning, daycare drop-offs, school drop-offs. I feel like I did a shift of work before I got into the school at 8. School started at 8:30, but I was there at 7:45.
Wow.
In the morning after dropping off the boys. I liked it because it got me out of the house, and that was my passion. It's still my passion, and education, being in education. So it wasn't easy, those years of working, and it takes a toll. It definitely takes a toll because I give a lot of myself in what I do. I'm very passionate in every area of my life. So going into the school system, it's not just a clock in and out 9 to 5. You get very invested in these children. They become like your own. So you leave and you're thinking about them. You're thinking about their families. So it gets to be very emotionally draining job, and you get very attached to the children.
Yeah. Especially, I mean, you taught kindergarten, right? So there's the,
Kindergartens are the funnest
yeah.
because they're the most innocent and exciting, and every day is an adventure. But they are the most draining because they're still learning a lot of their self-regulation skills, and you're dealing with them trying to gain this independence. And I always went into work thinking like, these are like my children. Like I treat them just like I would treat my own children, you
Yeah.
know? And if they're coming from certain family homes or situations at home, like I'm trying to pour all this love and passion into my job to like make a difference in these kids' lives, which is amazing. But it's pouring all of yourself into the job. I did it for so many years, but then it reached a point that I felt very maxed out. Dealing with your own kids in all of their stages of life and stages of development and all of the struggles, plus being in education, there came a point where I had to really reevaluate what I was doing.
So walk
So,
us through what happened. Like obviously you're working with us right now, Christina, and we love what you're bringing to the table. It's exceptional. Like I tell everyone you're a firecracker because you're just so full of energy and you're so passionate with everything that we're doing and you're so in alignment with us. But I think letting people know what happened, like what point did you decide that I can't do this anymore? And then that whole year, what happened over that course of the year before you came on board with us? I mean, I think that's crucial because a burnout is real. It happens to everybody. And especially when you're in a place and your soul, your spirit, it's not being fed anymore. You're not feeling that passion for your work anymore. So talk to us a little bit about what happened at the end and then what happened over the course of the year before you came on.
Yeah, I think it's important to even state the buildup. So this
Yeah.
wasn't something that just happened last year. I think it was probably even pre-COVID. I started to feel a little bit, burnt out, and um, being in the school system, I would push, 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 push to June. My cup was down to here. And then I was home for the summer, which is fantastic, obviously, but I was home with 3 kids. So what was I doing? I was running my own little summer camp and entertaining my kids and trying to stay afloat. So I would pour a little bit more into myself to try and recover from the school year. That would bring me a little bit up to here. And then September would come like that. And
yeah.
then it would, so it was like a slow decrease of like my internal battery, if you will.
Yeah.
So that happened over the course of, even pre-COVID. And then add the pandemic onto that. That was very, difficult because
Yeah.
I felt very depleted, and I was teaching from home just like this on the computer.
Yeah.
And I had my kids in their rooms on the computer
4-year-olds.
Yeah.
on like kindergarten. One was kindergarten, grade 1. So, I think it was more of a buildup over time of motherhood, the stress of working in education and with, young children and having young children at the same time. It reached a point last year that I couldn't ignore it anymore, where I felt like I reached a point where I couldn't, no matter what I did, I wasn't being able to like come out and feel good and feel like myself. So there reached a point where I went into work one day. I was still at a school, elementary school at this point, and I got to school and I didn't really feel like I knew how I got there. I was so disconnected. That what's the word?
The
Like
autopilot.
autopilot. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was in extreme autopilot. and I felt like my body was like sick, like it was shutting down, like
Wow.
physically, emotionally, mentally, like that. It scared me. It really scared me that I got into work and that was the moment. Like it ate away at the last ounce of me. And sorry if I get emotional.
Yeah,
No,
don't worry.
that's okay.
Yeah.
So that day was like, I was brave and I walked into my principal's office at the time and I said, I need a break. I had to
Mhm.
schedule that break for myself. Yeah. And it was scary because you don't know what you're doing with your life at that point. So I just said, I'm just going to take a break and just rest. I just need to rest at this point. Long overdue rest.
You know what's really interesting is because I bet you any money there are so many educators out there exactly the same way. They don't know how to verbalize it. They don't even know how to process what they're feeling because they've been in autopilot so long, right? So they're literally walking through life blindly and in survival mode. Like, I mean, do you know how many people have, how many educators have left the profession since COVID? I
Yeah.
mean, it's not like 3%, it's like 15%. Like it's a big number. And I don't even know if that number is right, but it seems like every person that I talk to has either left the profession or knows people that have, or that they're retiring early. Like it's huge.
Yeah,
The
it
Mhm.
is.
drain,
I
because
call
of
Yeah.
it
the
like the new pandemic of like
Mhm.
the people leaving education. And we'll get
Mhm.
into the reasons later of what is causing that,
Yeah.
and part of what my story is.
So, I mean, if we can just go back like a hair in that, because I know you talked a little bit about the buildup and how, you had this experience one day, kind of getting to work, not even realizing how you got there. And that, like you said, it is an autopilot response, like where your body is just going through the motions, but you have no attachment to your body and you're
It's
you're just
scary.
completely detached. And so was there any other signs? Because again, I think our listeners could maybe relate. And I'm not saying everyone's got to leave their job. i'm not
No, no,
i'm not
no.
saying that. Like, these are just, it's so important to read the signs of your body, read the signs of,
Mhm.
we talk about the universe and the signs of the universe. And sometimes it starts with a little pebble being thrown, then you get the rock, then you get the brick, and then you hit a brick wall. So
Yes.
before, like, I think you kind of hit the brick wall, like that's what it caught, like that's what triggered you to make that decision. But maybe for others, it doesn't have to be that way, right? It could be noticing those little things. So did you notice anything else? But like you did mention, you didn't feel like yourself, but like, is there any specifics?
Yeah, so like physically, I've always been in very good health and wellness is a big part of my life. No matter, I was healthy,
Yeah.
from, if you looked at me, I looked healthy.
Yeah.
I was exercising every day, but I never felt good.
yeah.
I was eating well, but I never felt good. I was sleeping, but I never felt good. I woke up feeling depleted,
Mhm.
Yeah.
So um yeah, those are like important factors. And all I would do was ignore how I was feeling and just push through.
Continue
Push
Yeah.
going.
through being a mom, push through being an educator. And there's only so much that your body can handle until your
Mhm.
body will literally scream at you. You just have to listen. And that's
Yeah.
what I did. At that point, I just said, that's enough.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I can't do this anymore. Like, I need a break. At that moment, I want to say, I didn't think I was like, I didn't know I was leaving at that moment.
No.
It was just, I was scheduling a break for myself because there is no break in motherhood and in work life, work
Mhm.
mom
Mhm.
life. There's no break.
Mhm.
So I had to just give myself a break. And, I know now, but at that time, I knew it was going to positively affect my home. And another sign was I wasn't present. I wasn't able to be present with my family as easily. I felt like I was just constantly distracting myself from feeling what I was
Mhm.
feeling, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. Because
Yeah,
it's
it totally
easier.
makes sense.
Yeah, it was easier. Let me plan things, have fun, which is important, but all I needed was rest. And I wasn't giving myself the rest that I needed and the break that I needed. So that was the day where I had to. My body was basically screaming at me to stop.
Mhm.
I felt like, I say this and I don't want to sound dramatic, but my body felt like it was dying. Like it felt like, inflammation is real.
Yeah.
Your gut, everything is connected, your mind, body's connection. Like my body did not feel good. So
Mhm.
I was scared for my health. Like I have a
Yeah.
sister that got diagnosed with autoimmune later in life. I know how much mental health and stress management, how much it affects your health. And I was kind of upset at myself because I was um, valuing health so much in other ways, but ignoring it in so many ways
Right.
where I
Yeah.
wasn't healthy emotionally and mentally at that point.
I
So
think it's a problem that all women have, right? Like we're so concerned about making sure that everybody's okay that we don't realize we're breaking down until we've broken down,
yeah, and
right?
it's unfortunate that we have to get to that point,
Yeah.
but I'm very grateful for that point because it
Mhm.
brought me where I am today. It was not an easy journey. Like
Mhm.
2024 was very difficult.
Mhm.
So picking up where I left off with work, I I walked into my principal's office. I said I needed a break. I went to my coworker. I said I need, this is what I need. I need to take a break. I'm not okay. And just
Mhm.
admitting that is difficult,
Yeah.
right?
So what was
Because
your, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no,
Finish up.
we just want to be like, I struggle with perfectionism and, you know, over functioning, and that perfectionism mindset that I had at the time was I have to be okay. I have to be the perfect educator. I have to be the perfect mom, wife. I have to be okay. Like I'm fine, even though like inside I'm not, but like you have to pretend and it's not healthy. So at that moment I said, that's it. I have to stop and just be true to how I'm feeling. So I'm grateful for that day. I really am.
Yeah. And we all have to be grateful for those moments in life because it's, you know, um, we are being redirected. And if we're open enough, we can see that we are being redirected in some way. But I'm curious to know what your healing journey was like in 2024. So you left at what day? And then what was your journey over the course of that year? Like, what did you understand? Because we know perfectionism, right? When we boil down perfectionism, it boils down to fear, right? Like
Yeah.
I always say that there's really two true emotions. There's love and there's fear. And fear is masked in many different ways. It's masked as anger, it's masked as rage, it's masked as perfectionism, it's masked in insecurity. Like there's so many ways that it shows up. But when you boil it down, it's fear.
Fear of not
So,
being perfect or
right.
appearing like you have your life together, right? That's
That's
what it
right.
is.
And actually, it's so funny. While you were talking, I was just looking up something on my phone because it reminded me of something that Brene Brown said. And I think we mentioned it in another podcast, but I found it and I wanted to share it with you because um, what she says is unused creativity can build up into negative emotions like rage, guilt, or judgment. So, what happens, I think, is when we fall into autopilot, right? And we're in survival mode. There's no thriving because when we are thriving, we've tapped into a creative element that's feeding our soul, that's feeding our spirit, that's, helping us feel that connection to ourselves. But that seemed to have been not, it's not something that you had readily available for you. So I feel like part of maybe what you were feeling was the fact that there was really no way of you connecting creatively to that very deep spiritual soulful side of you.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because part of the, again, many factors here, right?
Right.
Part of it is when you're an ECE in the school system, it's very difficult because of like, there's a hierarchy system, right? Like you feel like you're the bottom of the barrel a little bit. You're not paid to reflect the amount of work that you do, like not even a half. You're not even paid half of the amount of work that you do. So you're stuck, you're in a place where, yeah, your creativity and how much say you have is a little bit silenced. And that's part of a factor too. I have this energy and I want to do so much, but it's very difficult because you can't grow. There's like really not a lot of room to grow. When you're a teacher in the board, you can go into management, you can go to board level. There's, consultant jobs, like there's other options. But when you're an ECE, you kind of, you get everything out of the job, and it's hard to kind of achieve and grow. So that's also a part of it, because you feel a little bit stagnant. And feeling stagnant isn't a good feeling.
No.
When you have this burst in creativity that you want to unleash. So that's part of it too.
And I think that's why I call you our firecracker, because you have done so much and you've been able to use so much of your creativity to build and put things together. Even if it's just an email, it's creativity, right? Like you're putting words together. But I see so much of that, a passion coming out in you, which I admire so much. Like you're just taking things to a different level. But again, I want to come back to what you did in that year. Like, what was your healing process? Like, what were some of the things that showed up for you? Like, did you see a therapist? Did you, pick up some, like meditative practices? Like, what happened over that course of the year that helped you sort of sort yourself out?
Yeah. So like mindfulness and yoga and meditation, it's always kind of been there. Life just got really busy. Not to say it's an excuse, but I feel like I would do it and drop it and do it. It was never something consistent in my life. Always something that I loved, but it's just life got so busy where I was like, didn't have a minute to, I felt like I didn't have a minute to breathe, So when end of January 2024 was my last day of work at the board. The first month, I just stayed home. I stayed home, and it was difficult for me as a highly driven, over functioning type of person. Staying home was very, very hard. I would call my husband and cry and say, what am I supposed to do all day? Like the kids are at school, and he's like, just rest. All you need to do is rest. Like I needed somebody to give me permission to rest, which is a little sad, but
Hey, that's normal. I think that's
yeah,
common for most of us.
for most moms and women in general, right? So for the first month, I just had to rest. I didn't really talk to many people. I was very committed to this journey. So I, went very quiet. I didn't, people would check up on me, and it was just I just needed to be and feel. I just needed to feel what I was feeling, because I didn't do that for so long. It was like doing it for the last 5 years of my life. So I just had to feel all of the emotions. I went to a naturopath. I started to try to physically start to heal, because there's a lot of factors involved in recovering from burnout. So one of the things was going to a naturopath. I went on a supplement plan because I got this extensive blood test, and my levels were like really low, like scary low, like where the adrenal fatigue was very low. So I had to build myself back up. So I went to the naturopath. I got my supplements in order, and I even started to do IV drips of like intense vitamin therapy to build myself back up physically again. And again, like when you're so low, like this is just building you up a little bit at a time, right? It's a process.
Yeah.
Along with that, Andrea introduced me to a beautiful yoga studio, and I joined starting February, of that year. And I said, that's it. Every day, since I'm home and I'm not working, every day that's somewhere for me to go. That's one thing where I'm going to go and I'm forced to just breathe. And I feel like it kind of taught me how to breathe again, because for so long I was kind of holding my breath all the time because I had so many things on my plate and so many things that I was trying to accomplish that I was forgetting how to just breathe and slow down. So every day I was going to yoga classes, which was part of my journey. It was very helpful because yoga, as you know, is a moving meditation, and it was a big part of my healing. And I'm still going today, which is great. So yoga was a big thing. Therapy was something I've always done from a young age. I've always had struggles with anxiety, and therapy was always something that was in my life. I started to see a new therapist that was recommended to me. So she kind of was with me at the beginning before I left my work. I started with her before, which was kind of divine timing because she helped me through the process of giving me the permission to say, you know what, you have options here. You're feeling this way. When we feel very depleted, a lot of the times we think we don't have options, but we just don't want to listen to the options. We don't want to accept the options. I always knew taking a leave was an option, but why didn't I want to do it? Perfectionism, image, trying to, she doesn't have her stuff together. So that's one thing that I'm grateful for, is the support of a therapist to help me make those difficult decisions. And then once I made the difficult decision, kind of helping me along the way. So that was throughout the whole year. I would, in the beginning, I was going twice a week because I didn't want any outside noise from, I had support in my life, but I just needed an impartial person and me. That's it, to make the decisions to move forward. So in the beginning, I was going twice a week to, and then slowly it would go for once a week, and then it would go to once a month. So that was a big part of my healing journey. And with the therapy, it was even just going into the mindset and the unhealthy patterns that I was, living for so many years. Because if you don't attack those patterns and change those patterns, what's going to keep happening? It's just going to keep replaying and replaying. And that's what was happening, where I was getting to a little bit of a better space, and then the patterns would come and I would end up in the same spot. So I knew that I had to really do the uncomfortable work of identifying the patterns, that unhealthy patterns that I was, stemming from childhood, understanding why I am the way I am. And that really helps you move forward and create a healthy pattern to create a better life for yourself. So yoga. Sorry, go ahead.
I sorry to interrupt. It just reminds me of the night that you called me and you were like, so Christina and I live in the same neighborhood, which is very convenient and I'm very grateful for. So as soon as the weather gets nice, we're like texting, hey, you up for a walk? Let's go for a walk. Let's go for. So we really get each other out of the house. And I don't remember, was it like in the summer? Was it spring? I can't remember.
It was spring.
Okay.
It was spring.
It was nice enough that we were able to go outside.
Excuse me.
And you were like, can you come for a walk? I need to chat. I've had, like, I think I've had a breakthrough. and so, I had been listening to you, talk your way through this process for like a couple months. And, of course we were going to yoga together, and, and we kind of knew each other a little bit before this, but I would say this really deepened our relationship for sure. And so I'll never forget, we met and we were walking and you're like, I realized something, that it's not everyone else that has to change. It's not everything else that has to change. It's me. Like I'm I'm the one that has to start seeing things differently for my environment to change. And I literally like grabbed your arm and I was like, I'm so happy you realized the whole time, like, I was listening and, putting in a few tidbits but in my head, I was like, she's gonna realize it. Like, because I feel like that is the breakthrough for anyone who's dealing with any kind of stress in their lives. And, we teach this in schools, we teach this to parents that we cannot ask for everything else to change. We can't look outside of ourselves until we look inside and understand what what are these continued patterns. I love that word you used. What are these continued reactions I'm having? Because that dictates our perspective on life, right?
Yeah.
We like our environment is what we perceive it as. And no, listen, I'm not saying that there's not like cracks in the foundation of the school system. And I want to get into that too. And, just the way employees are supported and all that jazz. I get that. There's so much that can be done outside that can help. But at the end of the day, we can get all this extra services and all this extra help. But if we're not choosing to make different decisions for ourselves and look within, then nothing is really going to change. And so I loved that you had that epiphany, and it happened rather quickly for you, which is like amazing because it takes people years to realize this.
Yeah. And it was a big learning because and it came with, talking things out in therapy and realizing your patterns, that not that I was self-sabotaging myself, but I can't sit here and say it was the school board that made my school where I work that made me, reach this burnout. It was being a mom that made me reach this burnout. Yes, those are factors, but at the end of the day, we have a role in that too.
Mm-hmm.
Are there healthy boundaries?
Mm-hmm.
There was not. I had a hard time. I'm better at it now, but at the time, I didn't have a good time, a good grasp on my boundaries with work.
Mm-hmm.
Bringing work home or thinking about work at home or talking about work at home, bringing that home is huge because it's going to affect your life at home.
Mm-hmm.
Having boundaries as a mom, making time for not making time for yourself because you feel guilty.
Yeah.
That was not my fault, but that was a lack of boundaries I had for myself, not giving myself what I needed. So I think big part of the learning is, yes, there's going to be factors that add to our stress and make life a little bit challenging, but we need to create these healthy boundaries with work, with, people in our life that may not always be a good influence or are good for us. Sometimes we have to create those boundaries. So, if in a perfect world, maybe 10 years ago, if I had this learning, maybe things would have been different, but I don't think that's the way it was supposed to be. Life
Mm-hmm.
happened to get me to this moment.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
Right.
There was so much learning for you along the way. Like everything happens in divine timing, right? It all happens at the perfect time. So you had to go through that process to reveal who you really are and what you're capable of and what you're not capable of, what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do. Like you had to come to that point.
and the trust. I had to
Yeah,
have trust
sure.
because, I'm a little bit of a control freak in how I've had to let go of that a lot, but having that kind of urge to control things, you have to let that go. And I had to just things, affirmations, I am exactly where I need to be. That was one for months. Like literally had to say that to myself every day.
Mhm.
And it was the best thing I could have ever done, because I invited, I manifested, and I would open up documents and just write what I wanted my life to look like, and what my passions were, and what my skills were. And it kind of brought me exactly where I needed to be. So it's amazing. Yeah.
Yes. And it brought you to us.
Yeah.
And you were
Yes.
exactly who we needed to have too. So, um, okay, so before getting into you joining our team, because obviously you decided to make the kind of the call to quit, which
Right.
which is huge, which I
It,
think is something we really need to like acknowledge here,
yeah.
because a lot of teachers, ECs, anyone working in education, you have the options to extend leaves, to take sabbaticals, you have these other options, but you decided, no, I'm
No.
not doing any of that. I'm going to just leave. And so do you want to just walk us through a little bit of what got you to that decision?
Yeah. So I took the leave, and rightfully so. I needed the leave, and I took the leave from January to July.
Mhm.
Um, and at that point, with all of the work that I had done so far, I knew in my heart that it was time to go.
Yeah.
And and obviously I discussed it with my husband, and we talked about it. And I said, it's just something that I need to do. And it was the hardest thing. Like,
Yeah.
sending that email was like, I sat in front of the computer, but like, it was the most liberating thing, because in that moment I was just choosing myself, and choosing like a different life for myself. So,
Yeah.
and I truly believed at the time that I didn't want to hang on to the job, because I knew I wasn't going to go back. And that's just not me, to hang on to a
Mhm.
job. Just, yes, I know we need money to survive, obviously,
Mhm.
but I needed to let the job go, to invite things into my life, and to invite new things into my life, not be in this state of limbo.
Mhm.
That's huge. I'm so, can we just say that again? Can you repeat that? You had to let it go. Say it again.
I had to let it go to allow better things to come into my life.
Right? And how scary is that for so many people? Is that we hold on to, and you fill in the blank, relationships, jobs, um, whatever. We hold on to these things that we've convinced ourselves define us in some way, that are what we must have, or well, we can't quit or give up on it because we've worked so hard in this, and so what's my life going to look like if I don't have it? So like we make all the excuses to hold on to something where deep down we know is not serving us,
Because it's
and it
scary.
just tethers us
Hmm.
to that thing constantly. And until we untether ourselves from it, cut the cord, it's like, it's scary. It's probably, I'm sure, one of the scariest things you've had to do, but liberating at the same time.
Hmm. It
Yeah, I
was.
think it's the identity that's attached to it. It's
I
not
was,
like, what's my life going to be like? It's who am I if I'm not this?
Yeah.
right.
Right? I remember when I did a lot of corporate work, and there was a massive restructure, and a lot of um a lot of the people that I knew at that point in time were losing their positions, and that was the conversation. Like, who am I if I'm not that person on this business card? Like, what I like, and they never thought that it would be coming. They never thought that they would lose their job in this restructure, but the depression and the sadness and the grief, like, there was so much grief attached to the fact that I don't know who I am if I'm not this person on this card. And I think
Mhm.
that's another thing. Like, it's the hardest part of of evolving, is that you have to let go of this old version of yourself. Like, that death of the old you is really hard. And so there is grief, there's anger, there's sadness, there's denial, there's shock, there's abandonment, there's acceptance. Like there's so many parts of it. And then you go back and forth in that cycle of grief until you can settle yourself. And even now, Christian, you're talking about this. This happened a year ago, and you're crying, like you're feeling so vulnerable, and there's sadness still attached to part of that, which again I think is so real. And it's important for people to realize that it is a process. Like letting go doesn't happen overnight. Like you've probably done so much, you have done so much letting go, obviously, and so much healing through this process, but thinking about it can still
It
strike up.
takes time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was, this September was difficult because it was the first September I wasn't in the school system.
Oh, sure, sure.
So it was like the first, just like grieving, like you said, right? When you lose a person, all the first Christmas, the first, right? So losing this, part of my life, big part of my life, and this career,
Your
um,
identity.
this part of my identity.
Yeah.
The first September was very difficult. Beautiful that I was walking my own kids to their first day of school and be part of that.
Which never happened before.
Very rarely. So
Yeah.
that part was beautiful because that's what part of my goal was. I want to be a more present mother as well. But going into school and seeing all the kindergartens crying and running to their moms and primp in their uniforms, and like it killed me because it was like I was so used to that being what my September looked like, for so many years. And then, first Christmas felt very different, because not only am I not, and I'm not working out of the house now, I'm working from home. Everything looked very different. So it was just, and I wasn't running away from those feelings. I was, giving myself some compassion. Of course, it's going to feel sad the first Christmas because not only I'm not working, I'm working from home. So that's already a big adjustment for somebody that's been grinding out of the house for 12 plus years, well, 12 years in the school board, but like I've always worked outside of the home. So adjusting to being home more, plus, seeing the school and, missing little parts of your job. Because I'm not going to sit here and say I hated my job. That is the complete opposite. I loved, the years, and I'm so grateful for the experiences that I had. Letting go of it was necessary for me to move forward in my life. But, they were great years, and it is sad, to go through those moments.
Exactly. And I think it would be not who you are if you didn't have an emotional response to those times, right? Like, right? Like, it's just normal. Like, you
Yeah.
loved your job, and I mean, it just wouldn't be, you're just not that person to be like, oh, I don't care about that anymore, right? And
No.
that's not what letting go is. Like, you let go of things, and it doesn't mean you just don't have emotional attachment to those things anymore, but it's that you're choosing a different path for yourself. And like, despite those feelings of maybe wanting to have those lovely times again, you're still moving forward. Like, you're choosing differently, which is huge, and such a massive self-development that I think you should be very proud of. You should be
Thank
very
you.
proud of.
I'm
So,
very happy.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we obviously benefited from this choice as well, right? So Shar and I, we were like kind of in September, October-ish, we were having a discussion about hiring somebody and bringing someone else into the team. So for most of you that are listening, the Empowerment Project is Shar and I. Like, we're doing it all. We're we have all the hats. We got accounting, we got facilitator, we have creators, we have a lot of hats. And for anyone who's start their own business before, it's very personal. I know it's business, but it is very personal. So you hold on tight to what you've created, and at times you feel like no one else is ever going to love something as much as you love it, or put in as much care and compassion and all that. And so it's tough. And I think Shar was better at this than I was at the beginning. Like Shar was always saying, Andrea, we're gonna have to hire. Andrea, we're gonna have to grow. We're gonna have, and I'm like, but who?
It's
What?
our baby.
I know, like I don't trust anyone. Like clearly I have trust issues and control issues and all that added to the list of issues. But um when we were having this discussion that, I think it's time we bring in someone to help us out. Literally that day, Christina had called me and was like, can we go for lunch? I'm pretty sure it was into like the end of September-ish, because you were having these feelings of like, oh my gosh, like I'm not working for September. Like you felt it, you were having a little bit of that, like I'm feeling a bit lost and
Yeah.
I don't know my next move. And I said to Shar, I was like, I'm having lunch with Christina today. I wonder if she would be someone who'd want to join. Like it was so divine. It was like the universe was like, duh. Like I've talked about this before. I think very visually, and it was like I pictured the universe and the beautiful higher powers looking upon us going, okay, you figured it out. You figured out why this was supposed to happen.
We
And
were just
thank
supposed
you.
to go for and get a Pokeball.
Pokeball. It wasn't about Pokeballs. Okay. It was about this discussion. So I was like, and Shar was like, okay, I trust you. Shar's amazing at trusting that, if I vouch for someone, we pretty much agree on it. And so, yeah, having that discussion with Christina, again, I didn't even know where it was going to go. I was like, just would you be interested in helping us out? You have so much experience in the school system and and even in the mental health space and everything that you've done for yourself this year, your growth and all that wonderful stuff. And then it was like very instant. Like, I don't know, I don't want to speak for you, I mean, Christina, but like you kind of had quite a like visceral reaction to the conversation.
It was a beautiful day because, like you said, I was in a point where I was feeling a little bit lost because,
Mhm.
great, I let go of the school board. Great. Now it's, I was in that moment of like, it's September now. And, and it's not just about money. It was just about my like, where am I going to be? And, what's my next move? So feeling in that space of feeling kind of lost. And in just to mention, I was also applying for jobs at that point.
Right. Yes.
Um, yeah. But kind of applying just to apply, nothing excited me. It was just like, which upset me because I promised myself I will not just get a job that doesn't um that I'm not passionate about, right?
Right.
I didn't do all this to end up in a job where I'm not happy,
Yeah.
obviously. So
Yeah.
I was just kind of going through the motions of applying for work, but not excited about the jobs that I was applying for.
Mhm.
Secretly, like, hopefully they don't call me, which is
Yeah.
horrible. But anyways, I'm like, let
Same.
me just go through the process at this point. And also through that process was um, adopting all of my new patterns and ideas about myself because I came from a space where I didn't feel valued. I wasn't confident in my abilities. Um, I didn't feel like I was worthy, coming from the work that I was doing all the time. I didn't always feel valued. So that
Mhm.
kind of takes a toll on your self perception of yourself. So um, having this lunch with you and you seeing my value
Mhm.
that like I just recently saw in myself was very affirming, and like I like burst into tears right away.
We both did.
Yeah, because it's beautiful to like it's just like a big moment. It was
Yeah.
like one of the big moments of the year where like you're being seen for your value and your worth and what you can offer,
Yeah.
Mhm.
right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And
It was,
at that moment I knew like I was exactly where I needed to be.
yeah.
So thank you for that.
I know. And we felt the same way. Like I called Shar after. I was like, she's so perfect. This is exactly what we need. And I actually, for the first time ever, felt confident that I could trust someone else with our baby. Like it was like
It is your
leaving your
baby.
newborn with a babysitter for the first time and you're like, are they gonna die? Right.
Yeah.
And you're just like, and I felt so confident. I'm like, she's gonna love and cherish and work for this baby just as much as us. And I mean, and that's not to put any extra pressure on you. I think it was just organic that you
Yeah.
really
It
understood
felt
and saw.
organic.
Yeah, that you saw what we, and it's showing in what you're doing for us, and it's paying off in spades. And it's been a beautiful experience to learn from you, and to see your passion come out into our passion. And at the
Mhm.
same time, I know been a good transition in the sense because it is a part-time, it is from home, because you still want to continue those boundaries that you created. Like if it was like jumping full force into a full-time out of home, whatever, like you said, it wasn't going to excite you. It was just kind of going back into the grind that you essentially left,
Yeah.
right? So that
Yeah.
was important too. So knowing that we could help provide that for you, and was really important to
Yeah. I'm
us.
very grateful because it was very aligned with what I needed at that time.
Yeah,
I
Mhm.
was
yeah,
very cautious. You can't do all of that and then jump into something like out of the house 9 to 5 deep in Toronto. Like you
Mhm.
can't do that.
yeah,
Yeah.
You have to just start slow and just stay true to everything that is important to you, and finding work that you're passionate about.
yeah,
Not that I wasn't passionate about education, but just tapping into all your other talents and your energy is just amazing. So I'm very
yeah. And
grateful
I
for you
think
guys.
it's such a lesson for people in um like in manifestation, in trust, in having faith, that when you align yourself to your true essence, like your authentic self, like Christina, you are an educator by trade, but that's not all you are, right? So when we can dive into like, who am I and what do I value? What ignites me? What wakes me up in the morning? What gets me going? What, fires me up? That's when we start to attract those things into our lives, right? And for people that are in positions that they might feel a bit stagnant, or maybe, this is what I went to school for and this is all I can do. I get that. But if you're feeling stuck, ask yourself these questions and write them down and understand, like, what is it that really fires me up? And it may not mean that you need to leave this position, but maybe it means you're going to invite other projects in. You're going to be asked to, hey, can you help me out with this different thing here? Take a pause from your current role and try this out. Like, new things just start to enter, but you have to choose to go deeper into yourself and also potentially let go of other areas that you are overly attaching yourself to, because they just create blocks, right?
Yeah.
They create blocks for energy and abundance to enter into your life. So that is such a huge thing. And I know, like, we're kind of we're talking to this kind of coming out from the other side, but hopefully people listening can understand, like, this is not an easy process for you. This wasn't easy. It wasn't sunshine and rainbows and enlightenment every single day. Like, there were
No.
low times, right?
Right. And there's points where you want to give up because it's very
Yeah.
uncomfortable work. You're
Yeah.
going against years and years of patterns that are just automatic, and accepting the difficult parts of yourself as well is
Yeah.
very hard.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful because now I have a different mentality where I'm imperfectly me. I embrace not that they're imperfections, but I embrace every part of myself. And
Well, yeah, I think that what you're saying is right. Sorry to cut you off again. I'm sorry, but I
that's
was
okay.
just I have this thought in my head. Um, that's why people don't do the work, Christina. That's why people don't do the work, because it's really ugly and it's really uncomfortable and the process is really hard. It's so much easier to blame the outside world and be a victim of it versus um, gaining control over your own self, right? Like,
Mhm.
so yeah, the work is hard.
It's
It's
very
really
difficult.
hard. And Andrea and I know this because we've been doing it for a really long time. Like,
Mhm.
for me, it's 21 years. It's 21 years and it hasn't been pretty. It's been
Mhm.
really ugly. And I've lost a lot of people along the way, but I've found myself along the way, which has been probably the biggest gift I can give myself. And this is it, the grief is that old version of myself dying, where you do everything for everybody else and then you forget who you are. Whereas now I'm first and I can give truly, authentically from my cup that overfloweth, because I'm doing what I need to do for myself first.
Yeah, it's very
Exactly.
important.
I know. And so, I mean, I think this discussion today is so poignant in helping people kind of really listen to the signs and to understand that the importance of that, and where we wanted to sort of lead into this, and I think it'll be good for a part two. So, Christina, you're coming back,
Okay.
is because we want to talk to you more a little bit about, like, what are some of those cracks
Mm.
in the school system. And again, this is not, we're not bashing things. We understand, like,
No.
there's systematic things that are just there. And but how can, maybe how can we ask for better support? What can we do, and what are others saying? Because we did put out a survey, and I'm not sure anyone saw it online, but go to our podcast, excuse me, go to our Instagram, and there's a link in our bio that, if you're an educator, if you work in the school system, you can answer a few questions and just give us an idea. It's all anonymous. Give us an idea of your experience and maybe what you'd like to see better, because through our programming and even through what we can potentially present to administration, maybe we can help bring some of these better resources into the school system. But um, just in our initial review of the information from the survey, I mean, it's pretty affirming to that we know it's happening, but we want to discuss it a little bit more. And even, Christina, from your perspective, and working for 12 years in the school, but also in other areas of childcare, what can be done, and what can we do to help in some way after we've done the work inside, because we know that
Right.
starts
Right.
first.
But I also want to say, like, I've been this past weekend reflecting about, the podcast and, just kind of organizing my thoughts. And one struggle that for over the last like 12 years of working in the school system is there's a lot of people that have these stereotypes. And I had to sit there and listen to them a lot about why are teachers complaining? They are working till 3 o'clock. They have summers off. They're off Christmas break. They're off March break. What do they have to complain about? And that's something that really hits deeply with me, because until you actually work in the building of a school, you have no idea how difficult the job is. Yes, it's great to be home in the summertime, but it's also necessary because you're recuperating from the last 10 months. But I also think it's important that people, see black and white what is going on in with the educators in the school, how much that is affecting the children in the schools. It's a big issue. It's
Yeah.
it's huge. So I that's something that kind of fueled my thinking behind this questionnaire, is like, people need to see what's happening in the schools and the state of the educators. You want to sit there and say, blame teachers for, what's happening with your child's grades, or blame teachers for not volunteering to coach volleyball. Well, listen, you need to really understand how emotionally draining the job is.
Mhm.
And teachers are not going there and saying, here's the work, it's marked, take it back. It's not an exchange. These are like, you're investing your soul and so passionate about the wellness of these kids, the well-being of these kids, and the impact that you're making on these kids' life. It's not an easy job. So
Mm-mm.
doing that job with the cuts that have been happening in the schools. So
Mhm.
instead of getting more support in the classroom, you're actually getting less, and you were already getting minimal. Now you're
Yeah.
getting even less.
Yeah.
So it's really a big problem that's happening. And I'm not blaming or bashing. That's not what I'm doing. I just want people to understand how difficult it is working in a school in this moment. It's
I
difficult.
100% I agree, and definitely not something I fully understood, I'll be honest, until we started doing our work in the school system. And by no means am I comparing myself to a full-time teacher, but even just spending one day with a group of high school kids, it's like we come home and we're just like completely drained, and but in a good way, because you're
Right.
giving so much, like you're just outputting. So you need so much more time to refuel. And I kind of almost compare it to people who don't have kids. I'm sorry, like anyone who doesn't have a child cannot relate to having a kid. Bottom line. Bottom
Yeah.
Mhm.
line. And I'm not blaming them. They've never had a child, but as soon as you have a child, your life changes and your perspectives change, and it's just a different world. And it's the same thing, you can look at teaching as this, oh, those summers off and you're off at 3, da, 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 da. You can kind of look at that from a little bit of an outside perspective, but until you're in it, you'll never understand. And it is a tough job. And especially like I think about, in comparison to say like an office job, like, your office job, you can go take your break, you can go maybe go take a yoga class at lunch, you can maybe run to the bank, you can do kind of errands, maybe
You
you come
call
in
in sick.
late.
You don't have to like have somebody replace you.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Whereas you're on from 8 to 3. Yes, you have your prep time and all that stuff, but you're on the whole time. So everything else you need to do in your life happens before or after you leave that school. Very little can happen during that time, which I don't think a lot of people realize is such a privilege. Like it is a huge privilege to be able to do errands or appointments and stuff. And I get it. You can still have doctor's appointments and stuff, but it's all this regulated, right? Like it's all, documented. Everything's got to be planned ahead of time. Like there's very little room for spontaneity in that. And I mean, some people might look at that as like, oh, what's the big deal? But it is. If you've had that before and then you go into that, it's very different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's that saying, the grass is greener. The grass is always greener on the other side, and it's actually not greener on the other side. It's the grass is greener where you water it. I just heard that somewhere, which I thought was really cute. And it's true, right? Like, so you can sit here and there can be pros and cons to everything. But what I am going to say is when it does come to education and it does come to teachers in front of students, and Andrea and I know this for a fact because we've done so much work around it, is these kids are coming in from, like, if you have 30 kids in the classroom, they're coming in 30 kids with completely different programs and belief systems, and now you have to integrate all of that into a classroom setting. And then remember, the teachers also going to have different programs and belief systems. So I mean, it's like a really big psychological project almost, right? Like when
Yeah.
you think about what you have to manage in a classroom. And yeah, there are parents that are going to blame the teacher saying, you're responsible for doing all of this stuff. Whereas, the teacher would say, no, well, if this child isn't coming to school with these foundational things, then it's hard for me to do what I need to do. Right. So it's like, there's always going to be finger pointing. And you know what, like anything, there's always, there's good apples and there's bad apples. There's people, and this is in every single profession. I'm not just isolating teachers, but
No.
there are those that are going to go in and they're going to do their work and they're going to be wholehearted about it. And, they're going to, invest themselves in whatever that role is. And then there are others that want to just come in and do the bare minimum. And you see that everywhere. But
Yeah.
I think that comes back also down to the whole mindfulness piece and the whole, what am I doing to take care of myself so I can be, engaged 100% in the role that I have, right? And I think this
Mhm.
is where that survey comes in, which I hope that we'll be able to talk about next time. And we're over an hour now. But it would be really interesting to see what, really dive into some of those answers that we got from the teachers and figure out what we can do
Yeah.
to help these teachers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So we're going to end it here just for now, but please come back next week where we are going to dive into this question, the survey, and have even more in-depth conversation around this. And yes, this is pertaining specifically to the school system, but I think it could really um, even lend some information to any other corporate setting. So come back, and thanks for listening, everyone. Thank you, Christina, for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And we will talk to you guys soon. Have a great day.